Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is Chase, the COO of Stable Labs and Satin Exchange. So, hello, Chase. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Satin is a fork of Solidly, which is an improvement on Curve. And so, first of all, let's talk about Curve. What, in your opinion, what is Curve, and why has it been such a massive success?
I think the biggest part of Curve is just, the liquidity, being able to attract the massive liquidity that it has, and it does that in a few different ways. It had some very, especially at the time, had some very intuitive pools. When you have you've got like the Try Crypto that when that came out, that was that was like mind blowing.
And what is Try Crypto, just so people know?
Yeah, right.
Bitcoin.
Sorry, it's a pool that it's a 3-token pool of Bitcoin, ETH, and USDT. I think, or maybe it's USDT.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is UT. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a way for people to sort of diversify. And also doing it very simply, whereas instead of trying to maintain portfolio balances and this and that, you could just deposit, and you can even deposit one of the tokens in, and it'll sort of spread it out for you. Balancer has since taken that idea, but it really was revolutionary for the time, and it allows for deeper liquidity because you don't have to have a Bitcoin USDT pair or an ETH USDT. You know what I mean? Like, it's all there.
You just have everything in one pool. And if you're an investor in Curve, you want to put your stuff in Curve, instead of creating a portfolio of coins, they basically have pre-baked portfolios for you.
Yeah.
And you just invest in that pool. They get the reason why they like it is because they get deep liquidity for their exchange. And the one thing that's really great about Curve is if you go there to exchange stable coins, if you go to something like Uniswap and you want to go from Tether to USDC, because of the way it works, because it's an AMM, you're going to lose a lot of that money just in the transfer, right? You're going to get some slippage. There's going to be price impact. Whereas on Curve, it's extremely low slippage. You're basically not going to get hit with those, with losing a lot of money in doing a trade, right? So that's why. So over time, Curve became, kind of the Federal Reserve, if you will, of all of DeFi, the deepest pool of liquidity that there is in on DeFi Earth, right? Would you agree with that?
Yep, I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so everybody looked at Curve and went, holy shit, this is awesome. Then along comes Andre Cronje of Phantom and Yearn fame, and he says, this is pretty cool, but I can make a better one. So he comes up with a thing called Solidly, kind of about a year ago. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So Solidly was it was the first VE33 DEX, and this was revolutionary in a few ways. It was governed by a token that allowed you, once you had that governance, and that governance came from locking, you were able to vote on pools and direct emissions to that, whatever that pair is. Now, the whole idea of emissions going to a pair, liquidity incentives have that's nothing new, right? Uniswap kind of, I believe they started that party a long time ago. But the ability to control, based on how many governance tokens you had and sending emissions there, that was very new, and it really was quite popular.
Let me just stop you there, because I want to make sure this is clear for everyone. So the idea of there being a token. So you have all these pools, right? Curve had a bunch of pools on their site, which we discussed. In addition to getting the transaction fees of the two coins as people traded between them, Curve would then give you Curve tokens on top of that, and the ability to direct the volume and scale of those emissions was given to the users. So the users were able to vote on which pools received how much Curve, right? So along came so now in Solidly. So that's what when you say VE, that's what you mean, voting. I can't remember what it stands for.
Vote escrow.
Vote escrow, thank you.
Right.
And so to get that voting power, you had to take Curve tokens, and you had to lock them, which gave you the voting power. And that lock was forever, I believe, and it was locked to a specific Ethereum address. And it wasn't you couldn't trade it. It was forever locked to your address. So that was kind of cool, but kind of bad also, because if you wanted to sell it, you couldn't, right? So go ahead, take over from there.
Yeah, and so Solidly had, I mean, it was a very cool design, but it wasn't perfect. And the issue was that what ended up happening was people would end up having, a bunch of voting power, and they would end up making like basically a bogus pair, like by just adding a pair to, because anyone could add, a pair to the deck. So people would make a bogus token, add a pair, they would shunt a ton of votes to it, get all these emissions, and they were basically siphoning the entire revenue model of Solidly to what ended up being a fraud token, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end, and for Solidly. However, the bones of Solidly were quite good and continue to be, and that's evidenced by the fact that there's been many forks of Solidly since then. Everyone trying to improve upon the model, take the good, dispense with the bad. There's been a lot of different attempts and flavors of the Solidly model, and specifically to address that one issue, there's been dexes that have said, well, if you own X% of our governance token, then you have the ability to whitelist. That ended up being, I mean, I understand the decentralization of it all, but I don't know if there is really a perfect solution for that, right? Because I've seen it both ways. I've seen it,
right.
Okay, well, you have to have this gargantuan amount of governance to be able to whitelist a token, so no one can, or the barrier is very small and you're just right back where you started. And both have actually played out, without naming any names, but it hasn't worked out that great. The other thing, of course, is the governance model itself. You are locking a single token. Curve, I don't remember Curve being perpetual. Maybe it was. But I know that the common model these days on the forks is like 4 years. Some of them are like 1 year. It's a long time in crypto terms, right?
Yeah.
And so the benefits you get are usually, they can be worth it. However, no matter what, when you're locking a single token, you're taking that token off of the market, which is the goal, right? You want to reduce circulation. But what you also do is reduce the ability to give liquidity to that token, right? And liquidity, as Curve demonstrated, liquidity's name in the game. That makes or breaks every protocol. And so Satin Exchange has made several improvements in those fields to what we think is the magic bullet.
So in the Solidly model, I just want to get back to that for a second. So the main innovation in my mind was taking that voting power. So if I have a bunch of Solid tokens, I lock them, and what I get back is an NFT of my voting power. So if I had like 2,000, Solid tokens, lock them. Now I've got 2,000. Now I've got one NFT with I think it's 2,000 votes, right? Because it's one per Solid, I think, of voting power, and it's locked to the NFT. I can never get them out again, but I can sell the NFT to someone else. And if I sell it to you, now you can use my voting power on Solid. I assume you guys are doing the same. That is the design of Satin as well, correct?
It is, yeah. You get a VNFT that represents your governance. Same idea. The primary difference is that instead of locking a single token, you're locking an LP token. So what you're actually locking is you're locking the Satin Cash LP token. And that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for lockers. For one, the obvious one is that to lock an LP token, of course, instead of indirectly removing liquidity from the market, you're adding to it no matter what. I mean, if you want governance, you're creating liquidity for the native LP of Satin, right? So deep liquidity, as long as Satin is even marginally successful, there's going to be deep liquidity on the exchange for Satin. In addition to that, we're doing a sort of a pre-sale, and all of those funds are going to protocol-owned liquidity for that reason as well. So we are very committed to having deep liquidity because we've seen it a lot of times, right? These dexes, there's usually a lot of hype, a lot of euphoria. Liquidity is no issue there, but when the inevitable sort of coming down process happens, the liquidity dries up, and so we want to avoid that by having liquidity locked. And it's not just tradability, but it's price resiliency as well. Deeper liquidity means less impact from cells. And so we want Satin to be as healthy as possible.
Now, you said something interesting I want to drill down on for a second. So in the Solidly model, the Solid token it's not an LP token, but it is used for governance. And I think you just said your LP token doubles as the governance token. Is that correct?
Correct. You're still locking. You can have unlocked. You can provide liquidity to Satin Cash if you want, but to get the governance power, you are providing liquidity and then locking those LP tokens for governance.
Now that's different from Solidly. So you've improved. Yes. This is a fork of the code with improvements. It's not just a straight fork.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is, the impacts of this are wide ranging because again, besides just the liquidity aspect, which is massively important, the fact that it is an LP has more benefits for the locker. So, for instance, Satin is going to feature our other product, Cash. Cash is a yield-bearing, what we call a yield-bearing stable index coin. If you're familiar with the concept of yield-bearing stable coins, where you deposit collateral, you receive the yield-bearing stable coin in return in an equal amount, and then the collateral is farmed on your behalf. The yields are provided as more of the yield-bearing stable every day to the stablecoin holder. And so that basic model is what we have also created with just like with Satin, with a few twists. One of which being that the goal of Cash is to actually over collateralize compared to the cash in circulation, which has never been done. Usually it's a one-to-one collateralization, and that's always the big selling point. Our selling point is that we're going to over collateralize, and we're doing that in several different ways. One of which is just 5% of the rebase is withheld, which seems like it's not good for the holders, but the fact is that when collateral stays in the treasury, that collateral is farming for everybody. So as people enter and leave Cash, as they mint and withdraw and all that stuff, there's always going to be more collateral than there is cash in circulation. And so not only is it over collateralized from a security standpoint, but the yields are larger. And so at the moment, we're at one Cash token actually has $2.50 of collateral farming for it. And that happened because all of our pre-sale funds are in Cash and they're farming, but they're not rebasing because it's protocol. We don't need the money. So we're basically putting that cash to work for everyone else who does take part. That was a digression. So
well, no, I actually let's talk about that for just a second because you said that this is the only coin, the only stable coin which is over collateralized, but in my experience, things like MIM are also over collateralized by like 1.5x roughly, at the low end.
So.
Right.
Well, so let me rephrase then, because it was misleading. So protocols like MIM, DAI, right? I mean, you lock in Ethereum at whatever it is, 150% collateralization ratio. So you lock in that extra to account for stability or instability in the market, right? In case ETH goes down, you want to make sure that you're never, your DAI is always collateralized. With Cash, the collateral is all stablecoins, USDC, USDT, Cash. USDC, USDT, and DAI. So, that's never an issue. So in these situations with yield-bearing stablecoins, the collateralization ratio is usually 1-to-1. Why wouldn't it be, right? You have to worry about a DPEG of the big guys. But what we're doing is within the stablecoin collateral, we're growing that collateral through several different methods. So that, because remember, in the DAI and the MIM examples, that collateral is just there as insurance. It's not there to produce yield for the holder. Well, MIM, I think you can deposit LP tokens, so it's growing, but it's not growing. It's not giving you stablecoin yields. With Cash, that's exactly what it's doing. The collateral is constantly being farmed in stablecoin strategies to return yield into the wallet of the holder every day, and so. And we have the pre-sale funds, which are Cash, like I said. Because of that, we're raising money at the moment. All of that cash is currently farming for the cash holders who are opted into the rebases. And for the moment, it's quite lucrative. I mean, again, you're farming at 250% of the capital efficiency that you could do on your own with your own USDC or whatever.
Right. So it's like getting 2.5x leverage.
Correct.
On your pretty much the same thing, right?
Except as opposed to leverage, it's actually safer because you have all that extra,
right,
all that
it's actually there,
yeah. It's new. As far as I know, it has not been done. So we're pretty happy about Cash, but Cash itself, going back to where I was like 10 minutes ago, Cash is featured on Satin Exchange. So that has several advantages. One of which is that any LP that is a cash pair, so let's say Cashmatic or something like that, you could vote for that pair. You can direct Satin emissions to it, just like the regular Solidly model would. Except now you can also, the rebases from the cash are also claimable. Just like you would claim Satin rewards, now you can also claim stablecoin rewards in the form of cash. This is also true of the Satin Cash LP. So if you lock Satin Cash LP tokens for governance, you are getting all the regular benefits of governance on a V33 DEX. So you vote for a pair, you get the trading fees, you get you direct Satin emissions, you get the governance power. Except now, for the first time, you can lock your governance and then vote for that pair if you wanted to. You could vote for the Satin Cash LP and receive Satin emissions for that governance LP, and you're getting cash because it's a cash pair as well. So these things have not been seen on a V33 because when you're locking a single token, like let's say, on Polygon, the other one is Dystopia. If you lock DYST tokens, you don't get to vote for DYST. You vote for something else. Right. And so it could be a very lucrative pool to be in, and to lock up.
So you launched this. You're launching all this stuff on Polygon. Why did you choose Polygon?
I love Polygon. Polygon is, besides the gas fees, obviously much cheaper than something like Ethereum. It's just so active. It's so active. There's so much going on the blockchain, and their partnerships are insane. I don't know.
Partnerships are incredible. No question about that.
Yeah, I know Starbucks is on the list. I think Nike's there. Like all these big guys, it's like, I don't know. Well, I don't want to get started on that, but it's like you hear so much negativity about the crypto market from the mainstream media, and then on the other token, it's like, well, why are all these big guys even partnering with, a Polygon level? Like, why not even Ethereum? But
right,
yeah, they're doing a lot. They're quite busy, and they're quite supportive of protocols. They have a lot of grant programs, and they encourage all of that activity that they have. They're smart business guys, and it's a very good chain.
I'm just curious. It's basically because of the partnerships and the activity. You're going where the people are, I think, is what you're saying.
There's also
why didn't you do this on Phantom or or Arbitrum or something like that? That seems to be sometimes where the DeFi action is.
Yeah, well, I look at Arbitrum as sort of maybe the kind of the new frontier. They've picked up in activity quite a bit lately. But on Polygon, the only we'll say competition for the only other V33 DEX that I know of is Dystopia, and well, they haven't done so well. So
right.
There's an opening, right? we're
totally
applying.
agree. That was when I heard you were on Polygon, I'm like, oh, that's a smart move because there's all this activity there, but there is no sort of version of Solidly or Curve kind of thing over there. If DeFi, if all these other things coalesce and you get just this massive activity and all these assets over there, you could be landing at the right space at the right time with the right product, and it could all just sort of go crazy. Right now, I looked at the numbers right before the show. Curve right now has 4.4 billion in TVL in it right now. It's been as high as 24 billion, so it's down quite a bit off of its all-time highs. But if you drill down into where the 4.4 billion today is, 4 billion of that is just on ETH, and then the rest of it is sort of spread out like butter on too much toast across all the other chains. So it hasn't really, weirdly, Curve has not taken off really on any other chain. So.
I wonder if that's I don't know if I want to say intentional, but maybe that's just the Curve teams sort of, maybe they just don't have interest in moving to other chains. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, they've clearly launched Curve on like 10 other chains, so they must have some interest. It's just, if that's the brand name, it doesn't. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think Curve is a big enough of a brand name yet, or this whole thing isn't big enough that somebody else couldn't come along and slurp their milkshake. They might be the Alta Vista, right? And they might be like, we might laugh at like, I remember when Curve was big, and someone else may come along and sort of sweep the cake away from everybody else. So,
that's kind of been the story of crypto, hasn't it? This is such a hotbed of innovation, and so you have all these protocols that come out. They've got something new, it becomes very popular, but there always seems to be a line of people behind them, like, well, actually, wait, if we did this, it could be better, and they release something, and it tends to, from what I've seen, it tends to be like a battle of the brand names, quote unquote, versus the kind of the new guys who have been using the products but have certain suggestions to make it better and go out and make something, build the better mousetrap. We're by no means done building those mousetraps.
Yep, that makes sense. So, yeah, so it's pretty wild. So the new effort on Ethereum that Roosh and those guys have kind of gotten behind, the Solidly ETH effort, which they just launched, I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. They've accumulated around 30 million or so in TVL, which is not terrible. I mean, it's nothing. It's not even close to being what Curve is,
right.
But it's a lot better than a lot better than Curve itself on a lot of other chains. So they're out of the gate relatively strong for this sort of thing, and they apparently did a lot of work on the Solidly code to fix it. And they didn't really add any new stuff from what I can tell. It's pretty much the Andre Vision Solidly AV, if you will, but with the bugs taken out. Did you guys start with that code base, or did you start with the old Andre code base?
We started with the Andre code base. Yeah.
Okay.
And we just have it was well documented what happened with it, so we just sort of as far as the original Solidly sort of exploit, I guess is the right word. We decided to just keep it simple. Like we'll have a place in like Discord to request a new pair, and keep it centralized. I know it's a dirty word, but how better could you do it where you just simply put in a request? And I've seen this before in like exchanges and stuff. They'll ask to whitelist a certain token and things like that. So for us, we'll just have a request to whitelist a certain pair. We can look into it, check the contracts, make sure that this is a real thing, and then just add it to the DEX.
Yeah, I think I think one of the beautiful things about Uniswap was anybody could add any coin, which I think was the right move. But of course, that was abused immediately also with people creating fake versions of well-known coins, right? I can just launch a new coin and call it Ethereum, and it's not, but you don't know that, right? So,
right.
So that was a problem initially, and they basically fixed that by whitelisting based on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, which that seems to have solved the problem. But I do think I think given what happened the first time around with Andre Solidly on Phantom. Being very conservative about listing on your end is absolutely the way to go. But I think one of the reasons why Uniswap did so well was because the environment up until them allowing anybody to list any coin was you had to pay $1 million to Binance to get your coin listed on a centralized exchange. So there was this, and it was kind of that way everywhere, right? So there are all these mafias charging huge tolls to just get your coin listed. That was the other side of it being super bad, right? So I'm glad that world kind of got killed to a certain extent by Uniswap. As long as you don't charge for it, I think it's fine.
Yeah, that thought hadn't occurred to me. I'm pretty sure we're not going to go that route. It's just a gatekeeper, essentially, and especially like you said. I mean, an exploit like that again to happen would be catastrophic to a brand new protocol. So we're just going to not take our chances.
It's such a heartbreaker too. I actually I bought a bunch of Solid when it first launched. It was Andre. It was the white paper was great. It all looked great. So I ended up losing everything, and then Solid came back. I ended up getting everything back again. So it remains to be seen whether Solidly ETH goes a distance or not, but it's on the map, man. It's in motion, which is more than it was.
Like I said, there's just been so many since then that clearly there was something to the original, right? I mean, the excitement was there for a reason, and a lot of people still believe in it, like, you know, us included.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are you guys in your product release roadmap, I guess? Have you released a product yet, or is it still sort of coming in the future?
So cash is out. You can mint cash today. If you could just go to stable.fi, the interface is right there. You would just deposit your USDC, USDT, or DAI and go for that. We like to, have the sort of disclaimer that we're still in beta, but I mean, it's a fully functional product. Yields are coming. So, that's in existence now. Satin DEX will launch around the second week of February. So we're actually just beginning our sort of like marketing campaign and kind of getting in front of people and talking about, the various improvements of the DEX. And, but yeah, I mean, we're very nearly ready to go. We're just kind of getting the word out now.
And with cash, where are the yields? Can you talk a little bit about where the yields are coming from? Like, what other protocols you're investing in? I guess it's not Satin yet. It's other things that are out there, I guess, on Polygon. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So cash won't be doing well, at least as far as I know. Cash won't be yielding anything from Satin directly. I mean, that might be too much of a conflict of interest. I'm not. Yeah, I actually hadn't even thought of that. But at the moment, no. At the moment, we have cash in just a couple strategies on Tetu. They're one of the more long-lasting protocols on Polygon. We will in the near future actually transition over to some beefy strategies because they are very well known, very conscious of integrity and security. So
they were just on last week. So yes,
were they?
All of
nice.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love beefy. I've used them for years. So yeah, thumbs up.
As have we. They're helping us out. They serve in a sort of advisory role as well with us. So yeah, we have a lot of trust in them. Yeah, the thing is, some of the yield-bearing stables have gotten in trouble for trying, sort of overextending their reach. Maybe they'll go to maybe protocols that are a bit too new or strategies that are just a bit risky, or maybe the team is a little bit untested or whatnot, to try and chase those yields, right? And so I think that cash, because the name of the game for us is constantly growing our capital efficiency, we don't need to really be too degenish, with our farming strategies. So some simple, beefy strats will be fine, because again, even if it earns 3-4%, we're earning a lot right now. Again, because cash is still new, and we have a lot of cash opted out of the rebases, and so I mean they're just dumping yield into the people who do mint. Obviously that'll even out over time as cash gets more popular, but if it's earning down the line, if it's earning 3-4% in the strategy, but you've got, double the collateral farming for it, now you've got an 8%, 10% strategy. That's ridiculously conservative too. I mean, that's always been the sort of tightrope that we walk in DeFi, right? We're trying to maximize those yields without getting wrecked in the process. And unfortunately, high yields tend to equal that. So, if you can get in and get out at the right time, or, just try and find that thing that no one knows about. But, if you could do that, if you can get those yields safely, and conservative, stable farming yields, I mean, I don't know how much safer you get. Why not go for that if you can?
Yeah, we had the guest, not last week but the week before, was a company called Sturdy Finance, and they're backed by SoftBank and Y Combinator, and the guy behind it is a Stanford guy. So all the blue chip kind of markers around him. He is also doing. He's a little bit similar to I think to what Cash is. In that he's just getting stablecoin yields, and he's basically doing stablecoin leverage. He claims he can get up to about 18%, pretty conservatively, on stablecoin yields, just by auto compounding and providing some leverage. Again, everything is stablecoin, so there's no sudden wick downs out of nowhere. The only way that could happen is if Tether had a sudden wick down for whatever reason. Then yes, and all bets are off. It sounds like there's some, in my mind, that sounds like there's some validation for the cash idea, and it's it's not exactly the same, but you guys are sort of circling the same thing in some ways.
I think, yeah, like you said, I mean, we're DeFi is a place of innovation, right? And I feel like, I loved when I first heard about the yield-bearing stablecoin concept. I'm like, oh, this is genius. Why has this not been done before? It's fairly new. Oh, Cash is also Cash is forked from the OUSD code base. So they're a yield-bearing stable on Ethereum. Very battle-tested, been around for a while. A lot of very strong audits, and so that's what we're building off of. Obviously just on Polygon. But I love the concept of the yield-bearing stable because it's just cash that, from a user perspective, it's cash that just multiplies in your wallet. I mean, who doesn't want that?
We all wanted it with Anchor. that one did not turn out so well.
Yeah,
they were doing something very different. Yeah, but there is an appeal. I think you're absolutely right. There's a massive appeal to that kind of a product.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and think about institutionally too. You of course you have to be extremely conservative if you're trying to appeal to institutional investors. But I mean, everyone knows what's going on out there with the inflation and everything else. It's like holding cash is a bad idea, and I feel like crypto degens know this more with all the opportunities that we have out there to earn yield. It's like just having tokens in your wallet is just irritating sometimes. It's like, why are you not doing anything for me? So with cash you can, and with tokens like that, yield bearing assets. It's a good place to park your money.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of yields is Cash throwing off right now? Just ballpark.
Well, so yesterday was a bit of a spike because you saw what the markets have been doing lately. There was a lot of volatility, and with the 2.5x capital efficiency, yesterday it pulled about 30%. I'm not promising that at all.
Sure.
Just going on record and say, but yesterday it did. I would say in general we're seeing 12 to 15%, and that's just because of the way it is right now, because we have this additional, whatever it is, 200-300K from seed money that's just earning for everybody else, and Cash is so new that that there isn't a lot of money in there. So I mean, I dumped all my stables in there because why not?
Why not? Of course.
And but I mean, as the TVL continues to increase, the extra will still be there. We're never going to opt into rebasing that money, and then the people who are farming will continue to trickle over collateralization into the treasury. And Satin Exchange is also getting in on the action. 10% of all trading fees are converted to stables and sent to that cash farming treasury. Because again, cash is featured in several different ways, not just claiming rebase rewards from your LPs, but 15% of the cash rebase is sent to auto bribes. If you're familiar with the Velodrome model, where they can some pairs will auto bribe. And so that's it as well. And so, Satin feeds Cash and grows the relative yields of Cash, and then Cash being featured on Satin, increases the auto bribes, which increases volume and TVL and everything else. And so, it's just a sort of a flywheel. So one hand, what's it? One hand scratches the other's back, or I don't know, whatever it is. I think I just
remembered like 2 different ones.
Yeah.
Fool my hand once, shame on me, whatever.
Anyway. Something like that.
So you have a token coming out for Satin. When will that launch?
So the public, we just wrapped up the private seed round. We're going to open it up to the public here in the next few days, and you can find information about that on our Discord. But then of course the token will be just emitted once Satin Dex goes live. But at the moment we have the pre-sale going on, so that's
got it. Okay, so it's coming. Get in the Discord if you want to learn more. And we're just past the half-hour mark. So, Chase, this has been really great, and thank you for jumping on. Kind of short notice. I wasn't really sure if I was going to do a show this week. And then you guys popped up in my Twitter and was like, "Hey, maybe we do a show with you." And I was like, "Perfect timing." So it worked out pretty well. So do you have any websites to plug or Twitter handles?
So our Twitter is at Satin Exchange. Our app is stable.fi. The Satin Exchange, because it hasn't launched, isn't up yet. But our Stable Labs app is stable.fi. That's where you can also mint cash. And Discord, well, it's just the set. Yeah, it's a stable.
Go
labs
look for this.
network.
It's on your website. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, Chase. That's all the time we have. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.